The rain was a relentless, cold drumming on the roof of the gatehouse, a sound that had long since faded into the background of William's world. He checked the security monitor for the 20th time that hour, the familiar, lush expanse of the Maple Drive estate glowing green under its night vision gaze. His shift had another 3 hours to go, a stretch of time that felt both endless and painfully routine. 4 or 5 years, William had been the night guard at this exclusive enclave of luxury homes, a silent witness to the comings and goings of the wealthy. His primary duty was to monitor Gate A, the private entrance for residents, a post that offered a particular kind of loneliness. Among the residents, Camilla de Souza was a constant, elegant presence. She lived in the Italianate villa at the crest of the hill. To William, she was a figure of grace, always offering a genuine, dimpled smile and a warm, "Good evening, William," when she drove past in her silver luxury sedan. In the isolating bubble of his job, that small acknowledgement meant something. She treated him like a person, not part of the landscaping. Over time, he'd pieced together fragments of her life. A successful art gallery owner, husband often traveling for business, no children. She seemed the picture of curated, serene living. Tonight, however, the rhythm was broken. At 11:47 p.m., Camilla's car approached the gate not from the direction of her home, but from the main road. She was returning. William pressed the button to open the gate, offering his usual polite nod as the car slowed. But Camilla didn't smile. Her face, illuminated by the gatehouse light, was pale, drawn tight with a stress he'd never seen. Her eyes, usually bright, were fixed ahead, unseeing. She passed through without a glance, the car accelerating a little too quickly up the winding road. A few minutes later, a notification pinged on William's monitor. A motion sensor had been triggered in the lower parking turnoff, a small paved area rarely used, hidden by a screen of rhododendrons. The camera feed showed it was Camilla's car. She had stopped, not gone home. A knot of unease tightened in William's stomach. Protocol didn't require him to act. Residents could stop where they pleased. But her expression, and now this it felt wrong. His radio crackled with a weather alert, but he barely heard it. The feeling wouldn't subside. Deciding a quick, discreet check was within his duties as a security measure, he grabbed his heavy flashlight and raincoat. The walk was short but sodden, the rain soaking through his trousers. He approached the turnout, his flashlight beam cutting through the downpour. The car was there, engine off, lights dead. Empty. He was about to turn back, feeling foolish, when his foot kicked something soft yet solid near the rear wheel. It was a small, expensive-looking leather handbag, half submerged in a puddle. It must have fallen from her car. Picking it up, he intended to simply place it on the driver's seat and leave. Using his flashlight, he carefully opened the car door. It was unlocked, and placed the bag on the seat. As he did, the beam swept across the passenger footwell. There, stark against the plush carpet, was a single large muddy boot print. It was a workman's print, deep-treaded, utterly out of place in Camilla's immaculate vehicle. And beside it, something glinted. William leaned in, his breath catching. It was a man's chunky silver wristwatch, the strap broken. And, a few inches away, a faint, dark spatter stained the edge of the mat. In the stark white light, it looked very much like dried blood. A cold that had nothing to do with the rain seized him. This wasn't right. This wasn't the world of gallery openings and polite smiles. Instinct, a raw and primal thing, screamed at him to look further. The boot print, the watch, the stain, they told a story he wasn't sure he wanted to hear. With a trembling hand, driven by a duty that now felt terrifyingly real, he reached for the glove compartment. It was unlocked. Inside, neatly stacked beside registration papers, was a bundle of envelopes. The top one was addressed to Camilla, but the return address made his blood run cold. Blackwood Correctional Facility. Underneath the envelopes was a folded, crisp newspaper clipping. He opened it. It was an article from 3 years ago. The headline read, "Heir to Construction Empire, Arjun Mehta, sentenced in connection with worker's death." The photograph beside it showed a younger, arrogant-looking man. and beside him a charity gala, her hand on his arm, smiling beautifully, was Camilla D'Souza. William's mind reeled. He fumbled with the clipping, and a photograph slid out from behind it. A recent, candid shot of Camilla, looking anxious, entering a modest suburban house he didn't recognize. Scribbled on the back in messy block letters was, "Stop looking. You won't like what you find." He shoved everything back, his heart hammering against his ribs. The rain seemed to roar in his ears. He had to report this. This was evidence of something. A crime? A threat? But a deeper, more terrifying thought surfaced. If he reported it, it would all become official. Camilla, the one person who offered kindness in his lonely nights, would be entangled. And what if she was in danger? What if the man from the article, Arjun Mehta, was involved? The boot print, the watch, they pointed to a struggle, to another man. He closed the car door softly, as if it were made of glass. He couldn't report it. Not yet. Not until he understood. He had the handbag. He'd taken it without thinking. Now, holding it, it felt like a live wire. He needed to think. He needed to understand who Camilla really was, a victim or something else. The kind smile from the gatehouse warred with the shocking evidence in the footwell. William walked back to the gatehouse in a daze, the leather bag hidden under his raincoat, the weight of it feeling like the weight of a secret he now had to carry, a secret that had just shattered the quiet predictability of his life forever. The remaining hours of William's shift passed in a blur of nervous tension. Every flicker on the monitor, every gust of wind against the gatehouse window made him jump. The leather bag sat in his locker, a silent, accusing presence. He replayed the scene in the car 100 times. The mud, the metal, the stain, the chilling words on the photograph. By the time his relief arrived at 6 a.m., William was exhausted, his eyes gritty, his mind a chaotic storm. He drove home to his small, sparse apartment in a fog. Sleep was impossible. He spread the contents of Camilla's handbag on his kitchen table with a sense of surreal detachment. There was a wallet with credit cards and a healthy amount of cash, a tube of lipstick, a set of keys, and a smartphone. The phone was locked, but a notification glowed on the screen, a missed call from a number saved as R. Kumar. Scrolling through the physical items, he found a receipt from a hardware store dated 2 days prior for heavy-duty trash bags, industrial cleaner, and a new shovel. The items were like a punch to the gut, painting a horrific picture alongside the muddy boot print. The most damning item, however, was a small, folded map of the state forest 30 miles north. A specific area near the old granite quarries was circled in red pen. William knew those quarries. They were vast, labyrinthine, and largely abandoned. A place where things could be hidden. His hands shook as he made a decision. He couldn't go to the police with half a story and stolen property. He needed context. He needed to know who R. Kumar was. Using a prepaid phone he kept for emergencies, he called the number. A man's voice, weary and edged with suspicion, answered on the fourth ring. "Yeah, I'm calling about Camilla D'Souza," William stammered, trying to disguise his voice. The line went silent for a beat. "Who is this?" The weariness was gone, replaced by sharp alarm. "A friend. I'm worried about her. I found some things. You have no idea what you're involved in, R." Kumar hissed, the fear palpable through the line. "My brother, Vikram, he worked for her husband's company. He started asking questions about the Mehta case, about safety cover-ups. He said he had new evidence. 2 nights ago, he went to meet someone. He hasn't come home. His phone is dead. And now you call me from Camilla's number? What have you done?" The line went dead. William sat back, the room spinning. Vikram Kumar. The boot print, the broken watch. A man was missing. Camilla was connected to Arjun Mehta, a man convicted for a worker's death. And now a worker's brother was missing after digging into that same case. The puzzle pieces were forming a monstrous image. That evening, William went to work a changed man. The gatehouse was no longer a sanctuary. It was a front-row seat to a nightmare. When Camilla's car approached the gate at 8 p.m., heading out, he felt a jolt of pure adrenaline. He forced himself to meet her gaze as he opened the gate. She was impeccably dressed again, but the warmth was a brittle facade. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, which were shadowed and flickered with an unspoken panic. "Good evening, William," she said, her voice softer than usual. "Evening, ma'am. Rough weather we're having," he replied, his own voice surprisingly steady. "Yes," she said, her eyes lingering on him for a fraction too long. It washes things away, doesn't it? Sometimes that's a blessing." There was a profound sadness in her words, a double meaning that hung in the air. She drove off into the gloom. Her words echoed in his mind. It washes things away. Was it a confession? A plea? He watched her taillights disappear, then made a reckless, irreversible choice. He called a friend to cover the first hour of his shift, citing a sudden illness. He then grabbed his own car and followed her, hanging far back, his heart in his throat. He felt like an actor in a bad thriller, but the stakes were horrifyingly real. She didn't go to her gallery or a restaurant. She drove north, out of the city, towards the state forest, towards the quarries circled on the map. William's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The rain had turned to a fine, misty drizzle, making the dark roads slick and spectral. After 40 minutes, she turned onto a logging road. William stopped his car a distance back, hidden by trees. He got out and continued on foot, moving as quietly as he could through the wet undergrowth. The air was cold and smelled of pine and damp earth. In the distance, he saw the silhouette of the quarries against the night sky, jagged and forbidding. He saw Camilla's parked car near the mouth of one of the smaller quarry pits. His breath caught, and then he saw her. She wasn't alone. A tall, broad-shouldered man was with her, speaking in low, urgent tones. It wasn't her husband. William had seen her husband's picture. This man was rougher, dressed in dark work clothes. They were arguing. William crept closer, using the huge, discarded blocks of granite for cover, his body trembling with cold and fear. "You said it would be clean." Camilla's voice, usually so controlled, was a strained whisper that carried in the still air. "You said he would just be scared off." The guy was stronger than he looked. He fought back. "It was messy," the man grumbled, his voice gravelly. "The body is dealt with, deep in the slurry pit. It'll never be found. But you need to handle your end. The husband, the money. You promised." I will, Camilla said, her voice breaking. Just don't contact me again. It's over. It's over when I say it's over, lady. Now, where's the rest of my money?" William's blood turned to ice. Body, slurry pit, the missing Vikram Kumar. He'd heard it. He was an accomplice to this knowledge now. As he shifted his weight, a loose piece of shale skittered from under his foot, clattering down the rock face. The man's head snapped up. "What was that?" "Probably an animal," Camilla said, but her voice was laced with new terror. "Wait here." The man started moving towards William's hiding place. William didn't wait. He turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush, his lungs burning. He heard a shout behind him, then the sound of pursuit. He was fitter, fueled by pure terror, and knew he had a head start. He reached his car, fumbled with the keys, and peeled onto the road, his headlights off until he was around the first bend. He drove for miles, his mind screaming. Camilla wasn't just connected to a crime. She had ordered it. The kind smile was a mask. And he, William, the invisible guard, was now the only person who knew the truth and who had been seen. The world had narrowed to a tunnel of fear. William drove for an hour, taking random turns until he was sure he wasn't followed, before finally heading home. He spent the next 2 days in a state of paralysis, calling in sick to work. The 4 walls of his apartment felt both like a prison and the only safe place on earth. He jumped at every creak, every car that slowed outside. He replayed the quarry scene on a loop. Camilla's strained face, the grisly conversation, the chilling pursuit. He knew he had to go to the police. He had a missing person's brother's testimony, the physical evidence from the car, which he still possessed, a fact that now felt legally damning for him, and his own eyewitness account of an implied confession. But a corrosive doubt gnawed at him. He was a night guard with a story about a wealthy, respected socialite. He had stolen a handbag. He had trespassed and eavesdropped. How much of his evidence was now inadmissible? Would they believe him? Or would he look like an obsessed man trying to frame a resident? His prepaid phone rang, shattering the silence. The number was blocked. With a sinking heart, he answered. William. It was Camilla. Her voice was calm, softer than he'd ever heard it, and that made it infinitely more terrifying. We need to talk. I don't know what you mean. He bluffed, his throat dry. Please, she said, and the please sounded utterly genuine, a masterful performance. Not over the phone. The little cafe on Elm Street. In 1 hour. Alone. I will explain everything. You don't have the full story. You should have said no. You should have hung up and driven straight to the police station. But the human part of him, the part that remembered 5 years of kind smiles, the part that wanted there to be a reason, a justification, was intrigued. And the frightened part thought that if he didn't go, the man from the quarry would find him at home. He went. She was already there, tucked into a corner booth, looking fragile and elegant in a cashmere sweater. She looked like she hadn't slept. When he sat down, she didn't smile. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Thank you for coming, she began, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup. I know what you saw. I know what you think. She took a shuddering breath. The man you saw, his name is Donovan. He's a fixer. My husband, Raj, hired him years ago for the Arjun meta situation, to make problems go away. She spun a tale of a ruthless, powerful husband deeply entangled in corrupt construction deals. Arjun Mehta, the convicted heir, had taken the fall for a systemic safety failure Raj had orchestrated. Vikram Kumar, the missing worker, had discovered proof that would implicate Raj directly and had tried to blackmail Camilla, threatening to go public. She claimed she had only asked Donovan to scare Vikram off to buy the evidence. The violence had been Donovan's initiative, going rogue. She was trapped, she said, a prisoner in her gilded life, terrified of her husband and, now, of Donovan. I found the things in my car after Donovan used it, she whispered, tears finally spilling over. The boot print, the watch. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I was going to the police when you saw me that night, but I lost my nerve. William, you have to believe me. I am in over my head. She reached across the table, her hand hovering near his. You're a good man. I've always seen that. You can help me. Help me make this right. Together, we can go to the police with the whole story. We can bring down my husband and that monster Donovan. But I need someone. I need you. Her story was compelling, a web of coercion and fear that made a sick kind of sense. It painted her as a victim, not a mastermind. The kindness he remembered seemed to flood back, coloring her desperation with tragedy. For a dangerous, hopeful moment, William wanted to believe her. He wanted to be the hero who saved her. But then he remembered the newspaper clipping in her glove box. It wasn't hidden away. It was accessible. A trophy? A reminder? And the receipt for the shovel and bags purchased before Vikram went missing. And her words at the gate, it washes things away. Not the words of someone being blackmailed, but of someone covering up. He looked into her pleading, beautiful eyes and saw the calculation beneath the tears. She wasn't offering him a partnership. She was offering him a role. The loyal guard who helped the poor, trapped wife. He would become part of her narrative, his testimony shaped by hers. And then, when it was convenient, he would become another loose end. I need to think, William said, his voice hoarse. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly. The vulnerability vanished from her face, replaced by a cold, flat assessment. Think carefully, William, she said, the softness gone. Choices have consequences. For everyone. He left the cafe, the threat hanging in the air more clearly than if she had shouted it. Any shred of doubt was gone. Camilla de Souza was the spider at the center of the web, not a fly caught in it. She had just tried to weave him into it, and she had all but confirmed that if he refused, he would be removed. He walked to his car, knowing with absolute certainty what he had to do. He was going to the police, not with a partial story, but with everything. He would face the consequences for his own mistakes, the theft, the trespassing. But He would bring her down with him. The final confrontation was no longer about discovery. It was about survival. The police station was a monument to harsh fluorescent light and low-grade anxiety. William sat in a small, sterile interview room, the contents of Camilla's handbag, his written timeline of events, and a digital file of his notes from the call with our Kumar on the table between him and two detectives. He had spent the previous hour confessing everything, holding nothing back. The found evidence, the theft, the following, the eavesdropping at the quarry, the cafe meeting. He laid bare his own failings, his initial hesitation, his moment of wanting to believe Camilla's story. His credibility was shaky, he knew, but his raw, detailed account and the tangible evidence carried weight. The detectives were skeptical but alert. The mention of a missing person, Vikram Kumar, whose brother had already filed a worried report, changed the atmosphere. William's story was no longer about a guard snooping on a resident. It was a potential homicide and conspiracy. They took the handbag, the notes, and his statement. They advised him to go to a safe place, as he was now a material witness. The phrase sent a fresh chill down his spine. William didn't go home. He checked into a motel on the other side of town under a false name, paid in cash. He felt like a character in his own life, disconnected and watching from afar. The next 36 hours were an agony of waiting. He left his personal phone off, using only the prepaid to call the detective for updates. They were moving, but carefully. A wealthy, connected person like Camilla D'Souza required warrants, discretion. Then, on the second evening, his prepaid phone rang. It was the lead detective. We executed warrants on the D'Souza residence and Mrs. D'Souza's vehicle. The car has been professionally detailed, top to bottom. Not a trace of the boot print or the watch. The husband, Raj D'Souza, is abroad and has been for 2 weeks with ample proof. He's screaming lawyer about harassment. William's heart sank. She'd cleaned it. Of course she had. But the detective continued, we found a map of the state forest in a locked drawer in her home office. The same circle. And we pulled Camilla D'Souza's financials. 2 large, untraceable cash withdrawals the day before the hardware store receipt you mentioned. And a series of payments to a shell company that traces back to a man named Donovan Pike. He has a record for assault. We've brought her in for questioning. She's denying everything, calling it a fantasy concocted by a disgruntled employee. But we have enough for a hold. We're also coordinating with search and rescue to check the quarry slurry pits. It's a long shot, but William understood. It was a battle of narratives, and without a body or a murder weapon, it was her word against his, backed by circumstantial evidence. She was fighting, using her position as a shield. The call that changed everything came at 3 a.m. It was our Kumar, his voice crackling with a frantic, tearful hope. They found him. They found Vikram in an old storage locker rented under a fake name in the city. He's alive. William shot up in bed. Alive. Beaten, starved, dehydrated, but alive. He told the police Donovan grabbed him, but he fought like a tiger, broke the man's watch strap. He was held, not killed. They were waiting for something, a final payment or instructions. The pieces slammed together with dizzying force. Vikram was alive. The blood in the car was likely from the struggle, not a fatal wound. The body mentioned at the quarry was a lie. A test, perhaps, or Donovan inflating his own importance. Camilla had purchased the tools not to dispose of a body, but perhaps to intimidate or as part of a broader plan that had gone awry. The horror was still immense, but it was kidnapping and assault, not murder. And a living victim could testify. The police moved swiftly with this new, catastrophic blow to Camilla's story. Confronted with the fact that Vikram was alive, conscious, and identifying Donovan, and with the financial trail leading to her, her carefully constructed facade of the coerced wife began to crumble. Under relentless questioning, she broke. Not into tears of remorse, but into cold, pragmatic bargaining. She gave up Donovan, who was arrested trying to flee the state. She claimed Raj, her husband, was the true architect, that she acted under his threat. But the detectives, based on Vikram's testimony and the financials, believed she was the primary operator, protecting her lifestyle and her husband's empire from a whistleblower at any cost. She was charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping, aggravated assault, and obstruction of justice. William gave his final statement, a surreal experience in the bright light of day. The detectives thanked him. His own minor crimes were overlooked in light of his cooperation. The story made local headlines. Gallery owner arrested in kidnapping plot. Security guards vigilance key. William was named, his picture not used, but his role known within the community. A week later, back at his post in the gatehouse, the night was quiet. The rain had finally ceased, leaving a clear, cold sky. The Maple Drive estate was abuzz with the scandal, but the rhythms of security work had returned. At precisely 10 p.m., a car pulled up to the gate. It was a taxi. The rear window rolled down, and Camilla D'Souza looked out. She was out on a substantial bail, awaiting trial. She looked at William, her face stripped of all pretense. No smile, no tears, just an exhausted, hollow coldness. William met her gaze, his own face neutral. He felt no triumph, only a profound weariness and a lingering tremor of fear. He pressed the button. The gate opened silently. No words were exchanged. The taxi drove through, taking her back to the villa that was no longer a sanctuary, but a gilded cage of her own making. William watched the red taillights until they disappeared around the bend. He then looked back at his monitors at the quiet, sleeping houses. The world had not changed. The rain had stopped, but he was different. The invisible man had stepped into the light, and he had seen the shadows that even the brightest smiles could hide. He took a deep breath of the cool, clean air and turned back to his screens, the silent guardian once more, but one who now understood the true weight of what he was guarding against.